Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. How are you all today? Hello, hello. It's another week, and it's sprinkling out right now. Kind of misting out here, which is unusual, because usually by this point the rain would be like, done. Yep, it's the sploosh. Hello. Hello. So Stumpy the Dragon is still en route. If truthfully he is en route. It's thundering. I wish I had thunder. I like thunderstorms. So we are back on Elf today. Was thinking of working on his blue actually and doing some layering for you all. Because blues can be challenging, although we did the right thing here. We started with a blue that was a little bit lighter. And then, yeah, so pretty much we're going to work on Elf, and if Stumpy's parts arrive, we'll probably be close to done on Elf, and we can switch to Stumpy. Everybody's like, it's Monday, we're all working. Hi from the virtual world. Hello, Seagulf. So let's get some paint mixed up, huh? Let's see here. I did actually make a note of what I used, but oh well. We were working with these guys. Working mostly with Surf Aqua with a drop of Ultramarine in it. I use a bunch of different poster tacks. I use the straight up blue tack. And I also tend to mix in, like I've got a different sort. I forget which brand this is, and it's not marked, but it's a darker blue poster putty, and that's a lot goopier than the sticky tack, so I tend to mix it than the blue tack. So I tend to mix it with the blue. But I do find also that blue tack over time can kind of break down and become kind of stickier. So I also have some hold on. Mounting putty from Scotch, which is the gray. So what I try to do Esnabal is I try to kind of mix until I get a consistency I like. I just pick some of the stickier stuff and some of the not sticky stuff and mix it together. I find that I haven't found a perfect poster putty, but really you can use almost anything. Mounting putty tends to be not as sticky. So if you really want to be able to just stick your miniature on, then use some blue in there. But you can also just roll the putty kind of up around the base and keep it in that way. So totally doable. Any putty works. I tend to order it off of Amazon, or if I see some that I haven't seen before at an office supply, I might pick up a small package. The Elmer's also makes like an orange one, and that's quite sticky. I had to mix that with blue. All right, so here we are. We are in focus. Sweet. Let's mix our colors. So I wanted a warmer aqua, but then I also wanted to make it more of a deeper blue and also to shade it with more of a deeper blue. So Ultramarine Shadow is our actual shadow. These are quite different. So to do a base coat, I started with this. I will be bringing my highlights, however, up to Surf Aqua and even up to Phantom Glow, which is very green, as you can see, because I want that really warm kind of cerulean feel for this cloth. I don't like it as much, NGC. I've tried various forms of double-sided stuff. I find that it's not as reusable. The poster putty I can reuse and reuse and reuse and reuse. I also find that sometimes I found, because I tend to leave my models on there for a fair amount of time, often I'll stop working on a project, go to something different and come back. And I found that the foam kind of wouldn't clean off of the model very well. Like sometimes it would rip up. And attached to the base. I didn't like that at all, so I only use blue tack. I don't use double-sided tape anymore. So really, as always with painting, it is figure out what works for you and just use it. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean that it's not a good option. I am not the entirety of the mini painting world. Yeah. Yeah, I just like the blue tack. I like that it's reusable. Like, we have a bunch of it because when we travel to painting competitions, like, we'll use those cases where you stick the models onto the board with blue tack and then it's just air around them, which is a great way to travel with your models. Keeps them from rubbing up against anything. So I'm going to use just a tiny bit of this ultramarine. If I can get it to squeeze out. There it is. Boom. We'll see if that's too much. Could be. It's going to overwhelm this color an awful lot because it's really strong. But yeah, so that's why I don't like mounting tape very much. Blue tack is cheap and reusable, so it's like, even though the double-sided tape is also cheap. But it's, yeah, use what works. Use what works. And if it doesn't work that great for you, then, you know, look for some other solutions. There's also just the miniature holders that clamp on, like the Games Workshop one, where they use a spring to actually hold the model space. And of course, the problem there is if you've got an irregular base. But for plastic models, I find that it's pretty good. I don't like it as much for heavy models. I find that it doesn't hold on if the model's really heavy. Ah, dollar store blue tack, yeah. I would imagine. I used to order off of Amazon one package, like, lasts me for, like, ever, unless I lose it. Or you can look at Home Depot. They're a little cheaper than Walmart. Probably would be cheap. I'm going to mix a shadow color here with just a little bit. Kind of the reverse of what we did here, right? We went with the 4 drops of Surf Aqua and kind of a little less than 1 drop of the Ultramarine Shadow. And here we're going 4 drops of Ultramarine Shadow and 1 drop of Surf, just to get a little bit of white and lighter color into this Ultramarine, which makes a beautiful color, as you can see. All right, so I'm going to thin that a lot more than I did there, but this is a good start. Then I'm going to mix up just a pure Surf Aqua, which I'm going to use as a first highlight, followed by Phantom Glow. So we'll see how this looks. It should look pretty cool. I don't mind if his cloak looks a little bit magical, if it kind of transitions from like purpley blue to greenish blue. Boop, boop. I drop a fair amount of water into each. I use a well palette instead of a wet palette for the new people. I like it because it allows me to control my paint consistency a lot more. There are pluses and minuses to both types of palettes. Obviously, a wet palette will keep your paint wet like all day if you want it to. But I don't like how it messes with the paint consistency, where I can't mix up a puddle of thinned paint and have it keep its consistency. So I use the well. The well still stays wet, for the duration of this stream. And if I put some saran wrap over the top of it, it'll stay wet for 2 days. And usually at that point, I'm ready to just remix my colors if I haven't used it. So Phantom Glow is a blue-green. It was a Kickstarter color. The glow colors are pretty cool. We're actually probably going to use another glow color, Runic Glow, for some of the accent colors here. But we're not quite there yet. So let's get these guys going. Oh, so I wanted to tell you guys, and we can thank one of my patrons for this, who told me that over the weekend there was a 20% off sale in Scale 75 overseas. So I actually did order the new oil paints from them. So y'all can look forward to seeing me use that on my own stream and completely fail at it for a while, because it's been like 30 years since I used oils. All right, so now we've got a nice progression. We've got almost and the ultramarine does have a bit of a purple tone to it, so it is definitely a colder blue. And then we've got more of our medium, and then we've got a warmer blue, and then we've got definitely a bluish green. So you can see our progression from shadow to highlight with mid-tone here. when you're using like a range of 4 or 5 colors, it isn't always that you've got like your mid-tone, like your actual color of the cape in the middle. Sometimes the actual color is down here, and maybe you just have a lot of highlights. So I'm probably going to mix another highlight up here. I just haven't gotten to it yet. It depends on what you want, I suspect, Zipzap. I'm gonna. I was interested in them because I talked to the Scale USA guys, and I was specifically interested in an oil paint that did not have as much body as your standard oil tube paint. I wanted something that was more in line with their artist line, which I actually really like. But yeah, I mean, if everybody's gonna they're gonna be fans of paint lines, and there's gonna be people who hate them. Like, it's just the way you work, right? Because artists are so individual. We all have different styles. So depending on what you're looking for is going to be probably your mileage, right? I decided to give these a chance because, well, one, they were on sale, and two, I really do enjoy the Scale Color Artist Tube acrylics. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to give it a chance. I've got my Artisan Winsor Newtons to fall back on it if I really don't like them. Well, also Zip Zap, remember, I do this for a living, so I can actually write them off on my taxes. Unlike most people. Can you tell me why you didn't like them? How did you find them to be subpar? I am actually really curious. Because I like to hear from people. And we have a couple of people in our local paint club who paint with oils, so. I am totally new to it, as Nabal, but if you go and check out James Wapple, his call name on Twitch is Wapelius. I think Wappel. Are there 2 L's in there, guys? Do you remember? I'm sure the chat will help here because we're all fans of James. He comes and teaches at ReaperCon and does he sets up Camp Wapple at ReaperCon. So. Wapelius, yes. Yeah, he's the expert. Jim has been painting with oils traditionally and on miniatures for years now. So I am just a newbie who I used to do 2D. I used to love oils when I was younger, but I haven't touched them seriously since college. So this is going to be a very interesting experiment for me to see how I have to switch up my painting style in using oils. So yeah, I'm looking forward to experimenting. And like every painter on the planet, when a new product comes out, I go, ooh, shiny. And so that's why I thought I would pick up the new Scale Color oils. That, and like I said, I like some of their other tube paints. There we go. I matched my color perfectly. That's fantastic. I was just going over the top here. I'm going to do a little bit of a wet blend here to get a shadow set up. Along this fold. And it is pretty damp here today, so my wet blending is going to go well. If you live in a really dry climate, you may be very challenged by doing wet blending unless you're working with oils. So, oh, you watch him. Yeah, James is really, he's a pro. That man does amazing stuff. My game up to now, after I got out of art, out of school, I essentially started painting a lot more miniatures, but I was using acrylics, and so I got much better at acrylics than I'd ever been at oils. So now the challenge is to roll it back. I'm not sure that I'm going to like love it just because it seems a lot harder to do like detail unless you use acrylic underpainting, like micro detail. I tend to like being very fine and controlled, so oils will be a challenge for me because they're not as controlled. Like their strength is probably not that. So, but the traditional artist to me, the kid who did love to mess around with different mediums and who went to college for art is excited at trying to play around with some oils again. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm not a fan of solvents though, so this was actually kind of a hard sell. It took me a long time to really decide I was going to go for it. So the wet blending really gives dimension to the cloak. Whenever you add shadows, you're essentially defining like mass and weight and form. Snowing, wow. Hey, David Peterson. Yay. Yay for details. I know, right? Yeah, that's why I held off oils for a long time, because with acrylics, I could do like tiny little, you know, like highlights and bits, and I'm going to have a hard time when I go back and try to use oils on miniatures, because it's going to be not as tight as I like it. I think. I don't know. I'm going to give it a chance. But I am a pencil. I mean, my favorite medium when I was in school and was colored pencil, actually. So I liked pen and ink and colored pencil. And then I loved messing with oils, but I was never great with them. I just enjoyed them. I was a much better at drawing, much better at pencils than I was at brushes, until I got into miniature painting and spent 20 years getting good. Then I learned acrylics, but oils are still like that kind of prehistoric beast I messed with back when I was a kid. This is not. Yeah, I have an oil project ahead, David. There's a company that came out with a new oil line that I decided to give a chance. I pulled the trigger on it and ordered some over the weekend. So oils are getting to be very popular in miniature painting right now. They've been kind of like moving that way for about a decade. About little less than 10 years ago, I was hearing kind of noise from people who were going, "Hey, oils," and I was like, "Oh, it's coming." So now there's a lot of people who are working on miniatures with oils. Not necessarily, usually not little stuff like this, like the 28 mil, but bigger stuff. More like bust size or something like that, or 75 millimeter, which is about 3 times this size. That's where people are going into oils and really enjoying it. So I do mess with pen and ink a little bit, Pendrake. Although I will admit that when I go back to 2D, I tend to like to mess with my colored pencils a little more. And I have some gouache, and I have some, I mess around. I mess around a lot, like a lot of artists do. My mom, it's totally from my mother. She like messes around with all different mediums just for fun. So I got her lack of attention span. Every once in a while, I do. If a friend of mine, because I'm involved with dogs, right? So every once in a while, if a friend of mine loses a dog, I actually whip out the colored pencils and do a little pet portrait for them if I have a good picture of the dog. So that's like kind of like where I kind of permit myself to make some time, because colored pencils take a while to build up the layers of pigment. Let's do some wet blending here. So I'm going to thin down my blue here. If I thin it down with a bit more water, it's going to take longer to get tacky on the surface, so I can wet blend with acrylics a little bit more. Yeah, blame mom. It's totally my mom. Oh, you should see it. Like when she ships me stuff, she sent me a message last year when she shipped the Christmas box. She's like, "Be aware, it's going to come in a Dick Blick box, because that's what I had, and you're going to get excited because you think you got something from Dick Blick, but it's not from Dick Blick." Because she knew otherwise I'd be like, "Ooh, Dick Blick." Yeah. I don't have time a lot, but yeah, I do pet portraits sometimes for people. If it's a really good friend and I knew the dog especially. Well, that's something I could, I suppose I could monetize it, but I do it out of love. It's not really something I want to turn into an income stream, pet portraiture. I looked at it. I would enjoy it, I think. But got a little blorfy there. Trying to work in too big of an area can be your doom when you're doing acrylic wet blending, because you need to be able to tackle it all while it's still wet. And of course, since it dries faster than oils, that can hang you up if you take it to too big of a surface, because you have to work with it while it's wet, obviously. So that's ending up a lot more subtle here, because I had to throw more paint into it to smooth it out. But that's all right. We can still work with it. If you do a blend and it doesn't work, like just go back and wait for it to dry and then reblend. That's a great thing about using thin paints, is you can do this more than once. It's acrylic. It's going to cover. Yeah, skilled fake from mom. Yeah, I'm not a big solvent fan, and so this is really I bought some they make orange based solvent now, which is supposed to be a little bit better than like it's definitely better than turpentine and supposedly also more friendly than odorless mineral spirits. So I'm gonna give the orange zest thing a chance. Yeah, it's an excuse to push a pencil again, right? Friday of the month community draw along. That first Friday of the month. Let me make a note, David. Because usually Fridays I'm actually pretty good because I try to do a lot during the week so that I can just like be cleaning up loose ends on Fridays. First Friday of the month. You do it on Twitch? First Friday of the month. Community draw along. Anybody else who likes to scribble should also make a note of that. David Peterson. So yeah, totally. First Friday of the month. So we missed this one, but we can catch next month. Am I correct on that? May. I'll make a note on it and add it to my calendar. Thanks, David. Yeah, it is. I like the excuse to push the pencil. Okay, 4 to 8 Eastern time. Great. 4 to 8 p.m. Eastern. That's nice and early for my Western time, actually. That's 1 to 5 West Coast. That's actually a perfect window for me. Pacific. So I'm out on the west. I used to be down in Texas, but now I'm out in the Bay Area. Cool. Thanks. I didn't know about that, David. I will totally try to attend in May. I'll put it on my calendar. All right. But yeah, I just like to mess around with art. I like gouache too. The opaque watercolor. It's actually closer to miniature painting paints than anything. Ah, so your friend uses the orange solvent for oils and they really like it, Kerniko? Thanks. Good. Yeah, when I saw that, it actually convinced me to go and try the oils because I was like, I used to like this, but I hated turpentine. And if I never smelled turpentine again, it would be too soon. So the orange stuff sounds like it would be a good compromise for me. So I'm gonna try it. But I also, as far as that goes, guys, if you do want to try like an oil medium and you can't use solvents, Winsor & Newton does do their artisan line of oils, which I actually own many of. They are water-soluble oils. They actually went into a lab and convinced the oil molecule that it liked water. So you can mix water into it, and you can also clean up your brushes with water, soap and water. So if you want to try oils, they're not like super cheap, but they also make a water-soluble linseed oil. But yeah, Winsor & Newton did some weird, wacky stuff to get that to work. So it's not a hydrophobic oil. And if you want to try, you could get like just like try to get the burnt umber and white and just play around with them. Like do some kind of, like maybe Payne's Gray. Then you could do like monochrome and play around with it. Yeah, it sounds like fun. And it would be nice, like, every once in a while I pull out the pencils just because I actually like to draw animals, and especially the dogs, an awful lot. Dogs and dragons, depending on if I want realism or fantasy. So it would be a good excuse to do some drawing. And I wouldn't mind doing some concept art for miniatures, like Jim Ludwig at Darksword has wanted, he's like, well, if you can get concept art, I'll make he'd make a Kiri miniature, my old dog who just passed away a year or so ago. My other dog who passed away already has a Darksword miniature, but I don't have art for Kiri for the way I'd like her to be done. So if I could actually do it myself, which would involve like taking the time. That would be good. All right. Doggos with dragons. Hey, that would be a really good dog RPG if Dungeons and Doggies hadn't done it already. All right, so I'm just bringing in some shadow down here. And the thing with wet blending, and this is true with oils as well, is that remember you never really keep 100% of your original colors. You're always mixing them together. So unless you make a real effort to keep a pure, some pure brushstrokes of this or some pure brushstrokes of that, all of your colors that you mix are going to be kind of a transition between these two colors. So it's easy to lose when you're mixing like these two colors. It's easy to lose this and lose that and end up with all your colors being kind of a bridge between them. So if you want to keep something that's really that dark as this color, then you need to make the effort and not mix anything else into it. Oh, interesting. Orange solvent keeps her cat away from their work area. How interesting. I didn't know that. Things I did not know. I guess maybe it's just there's something in it that cats don't like to smell. That's a really good. I wonder if it works for dogs. So I'm going to have a puppy before I have a kitty. Bestest boy, Chonk, and Yapper. Yep, little Yapper. Except for me, it'd be bestest girl because I like girl dogs. At least in my breed, the girls are more serious, and I like a more serious dog. So again, I'm getting kind of a transition here, but I'm losing a lot of my purest highlight, so I'm gonna have to bring more of that in. And of course, once you set up a wet blend like this, then you can use layering to come in and pop out your highlights and get some deeper shadows. You just actually don't have to worry so much about the intermediate transitions, which is nice. You know, you already have a pretty good blend set up, so then it's just refining it. And those folds give a nice weight to this cloak. Hello, Tamara. Or Tamara. Tanger. We are talking about art, obviously. So yeah, so actually it's probably not bad that this is a more lightweight fold, as it's not as deeply sculpted as the ones on here. Since the cloak's getting pushed this way, this fold really isn't as deep. So I think I'm going to go with this very much more lighter fold as opposed to the darker ones here, where you can see the fabric bunching. And I got to get a little bit up here and a little bit of dark under this hood. There's a tiny fold right there you guys can probably see. So setting up, let's just set up a wet blend just from scratch and I'll explain everything I'm doing. So first of all, I'm going to use a fair amount of paint on my brush. Like it's not a perfect tip. You can see I've got a little glob of paint there. You do want to lay down a fair amount. The more paint you lay down, the longer it's going to take to dry, remember. So you want that if you're wet blending. Then don't even rinse out your brush, just grab a little bit of your other color and just work it in like a dash. Like I'm just working it in. See that line I put down? That's a little bit too little, so a little bit of that, and then I'm going to try to sink it down here into this shadow underneath the hood. So I've got a blob of color there. Now I'm going to rinse out my brush, grab a little bit more of my midtone I originally laid down, and start blending. Now, if you're in a really dry climate, you're going to see that midtone dry pretty fast, even if you did lay down a fair amount of color. So, you know, you may need to reintroduce some midtone on your brush. You're pretty much just going back and forth. I'm pulling in shadows. I'm grabbing more paint. I thin my paint for this, actually. Unlike a lot of people, many people will start out just going with thicker paint and building up they'll just go thick and they'll go over the primer or they'll go over the plastic and they won't do a first coat. But because Master Series tends to be a little bit more fluid anyway, I just put down a base coat, like you guys saw I base coated with blue. Then I just wet blend over that. And it doesn't really matter then. Coverage doesn't matter because I've already got my base coat down. So I can just mess around. Grab a little bit more. Do be careful that you don't work the paint once it's, like if it's just starting to dry, it's just starting to get tacky. You have to be careful because you can strip it up. So I just want to kind of get that blended effect there. Actually, Tamara, I am the creator of the Master Series paint line from Reaper. Like, I made this. I mixed every batch for 15 years. I created all the formulas. I named all the colors. So, since this is a Reaper Miniatures stream, and I am the Reaper Miniatures, like, ex-staff painter and paint line designer, I use MSP on here. In person, I also like... I don't have one sitting around, but I also use the tube paints from Scale 75, the Scale Color Artist. I really like those. So, Tangerine Force Field. So we've got a little bit of a blend here, and then if I want, I can just layer on some more shadows by getting some thin to dark blue paint and really darkening it down here in the crack. So we've got kind of a fade there. But yeah, so I use a lot of MSP. MSP is my main paint line, Reaper Master Series paint. Because I made it, I like know how it works. I tend to get frustrated with other paint lines because a lot of times they'll go for coverage and you'll end up with this very goopy, thick paint. And then I have to work harder to get it to the level I want it. So I am biased, but I am biased with a very educated viewpoint because I made this stuff. So I know why it works, and I know why I don't like some of the stuff about some other lines. I also especially like the finish. I find that a lot of lines will have just a slightly more shiny finish or even just a dead matte finish, and I don't like either of those. I like very much appreciate kind of an eggshell finish. This one that's got a little bit of life in it but isn't dead matte, but that isn't glossy either. I think it's a fine line with miniatures. You want just the right finish on them. And everybody's got different tastes too, so this is only my opinion. So all right, so shading quite dark there under the hood and then bringing it up lighter on the shoulder. And we've already got some shadows on the front, but I am going to actually bring down draw a little bit more shadow line into these sharp folds around his brooch, his cloak closure there. So we can bring those in a little tighter. Originally, I just did a wet blend to kind of bring some shadows into that area, but we could do a little bit of a sharper line to bring those bunches out because they're such tight little bunches. There isn't really a lot of room to wet blend them. So I'll bring them out more with highlights than I will with shadows. And I've got a little bit of light paint up here, and definitely in between the hair and this gemstone we should have a darker shadow. So going pretty saturated with my shadows on this. I'm not using like a muted blue like I normally would. I'm using pretty bright colors on this model. More than I usually would. So we've got those. But yeah, I think a lot of painters out there use a mixture of different paint lines. You mess around with a lot of paint and you find colors and you find consistencies that you like, and that's what you end up sticking with. It never hurts to try new lines when they come out, which is why I just ordered some of the new Scale Color oils and why I try to keep up on the industry in general with paint. I want a little bit more blend here. There. All right, and we want some dark on the inside of here and down under here. I did a little bit of a blend here. You can see the shadow dropping in behind the leg, but I want a little bit darker down this line as well. Whenever my midtone starts getting a little bit tacky, I'm going to add some water. I want it to actually be pretty fluid as I'm working with this. Not like super runny, but something like a 3-to-1, I want to say. 3-to-1 paint to water mix be about right. Because you still want a bit of coverage. You don't want to go so thin that you lose it, because you need it to, if you do have paint underneath it, you need to be able to influence that paint. But it's not super super thick either. So if you're working very small areas, you can do very quick blends. And also the advantage of working a small area is that even if you leave a brush stroke, chances are the people won't notice it. The human eye is much better at detecting irregularities on big open spaces than it is on very small spaces. So you can get away with a lot in a very small space. It's why you don't really need perfect blending on 28mm faces. If you get close, it's gonna look blended to the average viewer looking at it unless they have a magnification device. So bring that up, bring that down, where we go. Gonna bring in a lot of this dark blue down here, up against the bottom, back of that cloak. Just kind of bring two darts down there where the folds fall back. But I'm using a lot of this paint, so I know a lot of this area is gonna go dark. That's all right, because it's under the body, so it should be darker. And back here, your blending doesn't have to be perfect because, you know, it's underneath the model. Most people won't go down and look. But if you do see lines, like I've got a line there, you can totally bring in your other paint and blend that in. And you don't ever want to use paints that are too close together for wet blending either. Like if I was trying to wet blend, say, with these two, too close, you wouldn't even see it. Like it would all mush together in the same color and you wouldn't see any differences. So it's much better if you work with, say, a dark and a light, or a dark and a medium, or a medium and a light, or even a dark and a light. Dark and a light is a little bit harder, though it is what I do if I'm working on, say, wolves. I like to mix kind of a creamy ivory color with a brownish black and get the kind of gray-brown transitions. But because those two colors are very different, it can be harder to blend them, especially over big areas. Do I have an example? I don't really have a Wolfie in front of me, sadly. I haven't started on one of my new Wolfies yet. But eventually I'll get something put together to show you guys that. I think I did a video on it ages ago on my wolf coloring. I don't remember. Definitely on the Patreon, but I don't know about anywhere else. I think it was a wet blending a wolf pelt. And that's probably a good cue for me to mention my Patreon. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig. It's my thing. It's what keeps me. It's Ann powered. It powers the Ann. It powers me. Keeps me going. Thank you all for you guys who are supporting me as patrons. Like, it is literally what allows me to do this stream. Without the Patreon, I would have to run out and get a real job. All right, so I got that blocked in, but you can see that line there. However, there's a lot of paint down there right now, so I'm just going to clean off my brush. It's still damp. And I'm just going to feather over that line and blend it in. So you can, that's another thing you can do very much with oil paints, is if you've got a lot of paint down already, you don't want to add more. You actually want to back off, just clean off your brush, and then just use the tip to feather those colors together so that you can get the blend you want. So part of wet blending and or using oil paint is knowing when to pull back and not to add more paint. It's very easy to overwhelm, especially with oils. It's very easy to overwhelm the surface with too much paint. And with that, you've got a lot bigger drying time. So there we go. I like that blue. That's a very pretty blue. All right, let's go to our next color. Let's start highlighting with our Surf Aqua, which is very much more greenish blue than the one we started with. Thank you for the Patreon link in the chat, Quindy. Quindy, always there with the link. So I haven't even checked to see where the Bones 6 Kickstarter is, guys. Maybe I should do that. Bones 6. I was keeping it up on my phone, then I lost it. Kickstarter. There. Oh, nope, nope, that's not it. Wrong thing. There we go. I've looked at 2 Kickstarters recently, so the wrong one popped up. Oh, nice. So we hit. What stretch goal are we headed for right now? We've got 19 days to go, and we just unlocked. It's that Fae. Yeah, we just unlocked 2 of 5 on the Fae expansion, right? And now we're headed for 4 of 5 on the vampire, like, undead expansion. That's cool. So we're moving right along, really. Oh, this is the good one too. This is the vampires. I really love this guy from Jason Weeby. This big, nasty gargoyle type vampire. But the characters are cool too. So very much looking forward to that. Oh, a werebear. Oh, he's a really cool werebear. Oh, did Weeby do this one, guys? Did Jason do this? Because this is really good. That is a really cool werebear. Okay, we have to get to at least 975,000 on this Kickstarter. I want the werebear. Yeah, the vampire's cool. There's the Kickstarter page. So if you want a bunch of models like really inexpensively, Tamara, the Reaper Kickstarters are a really good deal. It's all plastic models, but like if you're looking for stuff to practice painting on, or you're teaching like your kids or your friends to paint, it's a really good buy. Hello, Bob and Julie. Oh, okay, so Punga Studios sculpted the werebear. That werebear is awesome. Yeah, that is a really good werebear. Like, I really want one now. That's the first model I've seen in this Kickstarter that made me go, must have. And I do like the vampires too. All right, so let's layer on some warmer, greener highlights here. Thinned my paint about 2 to 1, and it may not be enough. I can see some brush strokes, but I'm going to at least work with it a bit. Sometimes when you first start painting with a highlight, when you start like working it in, you may think it's too bright, but remember that it'll look brighter when it's wet, so you need to let it dry and then assess. So that is slightly, I'm seeing some brush strokes, but it's actually not bad. So I'm going to let it sit for a second, and I'm going to hit the rest of this. Maybe I'll put one more drop of water into it, one more brush full of water into it. You got to be a little careful with these medium light colors, because these colors do have a lot of white in them, but often not as much as like Reaper Pure White, which has a ton of white. And so, although you do need to thin them more to get, good layers, you don't need to thin them as much as you might think. So be a little cautious when you're thinning them. Just add a little bit of water at a time and test it and see where you are. And remember, if you're just getting a little bit of brush stroke, it's really easy to take our previous midtone color and come back into that from the opposite direction. Yeah, the chibis are cute. I love that werebear, though. That werebear. So good. Is that werebear that gets added to the core set, or is it an add-on? Added to core set. Wow. I hope that you can buy more. All right. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of brush stroke here. And I'm also getting a little bit of streakiness or chalkiness. So that says I want to, actually, in this case, when you get streaks, you can try thinning a little bit more if you're not super thin. If there's 2 types of chalkiness, really. Like, there's a streaking effect that you can get, and there's an over-thinning effect. So if you haven't thinned immensely, but you're getting kind of streaks or an uneven coat, try thinning a little bit more. It may take longer for you to build up layers, but it should get rid of some of the streaky effect. Yeah, I think this is better. Smoother. Now, I do want to kind of watch the amount of paint on my brushes. I do have a little extra, and I'm seeing it puddle. That's from being impatient. Sometimes I get impatient, just like everybody else. So when I'm talking about coming back and blending from the other side, I actually think I need this palette in here. There we go. Now we can see it a little better. Like if I notice that I'm getting a little bit of streakiness, I can, or brush strokes, I can come in with my blue and kind of blend into that from the other direction. If I notice that my streakiness is there and I'm seeing kind of choppy brush strokes, I can take my base coat, make a glaze out of it, which is a very thin paint application that's kind of like colored water. And I can paint that very selectively over the area where I'm seeing the problem. And that usually, I'll just paint it all over. That usually will help to smooth it out. Oh, that's a bummer, because I really don't want all the core. I'm glad to hear you say that. Out of the water. We have some lovely sculptors who are doing great work for us. So those who are new to Reaper, we do mostly miniatures for role-playing games. We do have a license from Paizo for the Pathfinder, for some of the Pathfinder miniatures in bones, plastic, and metal. But we also just do a lot of good generic role-playing game miniatures, character figures, and monsters. And the monsters we tend to do in the bones plastic because it's a lot cheaper than trying to do them in old school metal. Though Reaper did start out a metal casting house. These days, metal's getting more and more expensive, so we're doing a lot of plastic these days. Just gonna get in here with a little bit of a highlight, real thin. That might be a little bit much. I could take my mid-tone again and just kind of blend that. There's a lot of white in that though, so it's resisting me. Sometimes you'll get into that where you need to bring a little bit of your shadow in, tamp it down. Let's see. So that's warming it up a lot. See, it's bringing that green into it. We'll see. Or I just wait till stuff gets released. If I can't get the werebear separately and I really don't want the corset, then I might just wait. So let's add in some of this green down here. I'm going across the fold, you notice, not up and down. For big, broad folds like this, don't go in line with the fold. Go against the grain. And essentially, it lets you confuse the eye a little bit. It's also easier to add the illusion of cloth texture this way. So I'm going across down here and across here to get that blend. Got a little bit of a blending line there that just showed up. And there is a fold there, so I don't want to lose it entirely, but... And sometimes it's hard to see if it's a sharp line or not, but I can see that line when I tilt it away. Now, as I said, this is a fold, but maybe I need to feather a little bit of my base coat in to kind of blend it a little better. There, now it blends more. There. And I do want a little bit of a hard shadow here just because it's, you know, where the fold kind of drops off and where the cape swirls back up to catch the light. So I do want a little bit of that. I feel like I want just a little bit more water. If you want to suggest texture, then don't thin your paint as much. If you want to get smooth blends, you have to thin your paint quite a bit. And it's time consuming to do smooth blending. But it can look really nice, obviously, if that's what you're going for. If the cloth that you're painting, for example, oh no, do I have a hair? Do Do I have a hair? Oh no, I've got a hair. Okay, so emergency. Ding, ding, ding. The siren goes off. I see a hair in my paint. This happens very seldom since I don't have a dog right now, but... So, when this happens, very gently take your knife, scrape along the surface. Don't do this with a really sharp knife. Very gently. You want to just pick up that hair. It has a texture. You may pick up the top layer of paint also, but what you don't want to do is gouge through the paint job into the plastic or metal underneath. Just use a little scraping motion. Believe it or not, you can take off just the little top layer of paint and that hair with a very gentle touch. Most people would be freaking out trying to do this. I have done this on competition level models, so I have no fear. I think that got it. I think there might be just a little bit. Yep. All right. Ta-da! Nah. Oh, it would bug me so much, especially when I'm doing it on like a fabric where I want smooth. I'm just like, man, I cannot leave the hair on. That and it's like I use a knife for so many things on models. But yeah, it isn't that hard. You need a light touch to do that. But as you can see, it didn't slow me down for more than like 30 seconds a minute. Then I can reapply some paint over the top in case there are any artifacts. Now out here, I feel like I do want a little bit of highlight at the very edge. And once again, as this edge is long and vertical, I'm going to be using a brush stroke that goes across it. Confusing the eye is part of getting that illusion of smooth blends. If you look at any smooth blend, except maybe I know one guy who could do a smooth blend that you probably could have looked at under extreme magnification and it would still look smooth, but he was an insane oddity, and his miniatures looked like they were painted with tiny airbrushes. And he was doing like 40 layers to build up color. It was insane. He just had a really good memory for where the previous layer went down. Like crazy, crazy good at it. But he's an oddity and the rest of us are not oddities. So we have to rely on really confusing the eyeball to get this illusion of a smooth blend. And one of the ways to get that illusion is to always make sure your brush stroke goes against the grain instead of with the shape, it's against the shape. So you'll notice that on these folds, I was doing like this kind of brush stroke because this is the shape, the way it's going, right? Same with this. I'm going to be doing a cross. I'm never going to do a brush stroke that's like in line with the shape because our eyes are really good at picking up that kind of thing, and they're going to see your like anybody looking at it will be able to see your brush strokes. So if you're trying to either create the illusion of a smooth blend or create the illusion of a textured cloth, for example, which I've kind of got going on down here, albeit really finely, you can kind of see the paint lines there. More evident in person. It's never too late, Babel. Bonus texture. Funny, NGC. Alrighty. So the thing with really thin paint though is you do need to take it off your brush. You need to unload your brush a lot in order to be able to control it. So I'm going to build up another layer here. And also you may need to build up more than one layer of each color in order to bring it up to its top potential as far as the highlight goes. You can see those little lines that help to create an illusion of cloth. Now, if you are doing that, you do need to make sure your lines are in line with each other. Haha. So if you do have a cross cloth texture going on here, but you're using a vertical line to do a blend here, remember to also introduce a couple of little crosshatch lines. So if you're trying for this, you can see that kind of very subtle cloth texture coming up. And I would not do this if you are planning to do like a lot of freehand. Then probably it's a waste of your time to do a lot of awesome texture because you're going to cover up a lot of it. I'm going to actually thin down my base color and smooth in some of these shadows that I'm just seeing a little bit too much blockiness. When you wet blend, you don't get a perfect result. You just get kind of a quick setup for smooth blends. Yeah, I get impatient too. Like I try to, if I can just get in the zone and sit back and relax and kind of go with it, then I get much better results for my layering and wet blending. So I'm going to blend in a little bit of my base color. Just because I'm like, this area is just a little bit too, there we go, now it's a little bit better. Gonna interrupt the line a little bit. Give that more of a, now you can kind of see that color and the texture. It gives you that softer look to do the lines this way. And as you can see, since my paint is so very thin at this point, it's going to take a while to like build anything up, right? Need to blend that one in. So this takes time. Like layering takes time. Smooth blending takes time. Textures take time. You can do a very kind of half-ass, you know, like quick texture effect and still get really good stuff for, especially for tabletop, if you just want to kind of blow your friends' minds but not make it, you know, super perfect. You're not painting it for competition, but you want people to go, oh my god. You can do a very quick version of this, and it'll probably still get people to go, you know, oh my god, gratifyingly. Oh, hello. Thank you for the raid, Mr. FS Studio. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you before. I'm Anne, everybody. New raiders. I work for Reaper Miniatures. I have for over 19 years now. I created Master Series paint for them, and I was a staff painter for many years. I moved a while ago, so now I'm remote and streaming for them. That is how I am now their employee. But yeah, this is Reaper's morning stream. We do it every day of the week, weekdays. And we hang out, and lately we've been working on a model from the Bone 6 Kickstarter, which is running right now. So if you want a lot of models fairly inexpensively, you can go to that link, or Quindy will pop up the link right there in chat. She also linked to all my social media. I do my own Twitch channel on Saturday. I have a YouTube, things like that. I am a painter. I am a international and national award-winning painter. I just got a Privateer Press Grand Master at Adepticon. But I think my main thing is teaching. Unlike a lot of painters, I like to win trophies. I like to paint for competition, but I actually enjoy teaching more. So that's why I do all of this stuff. Talking to David about that the other day, because like I get more excited and interested in the idea of like a new lesson or a new video a new way to explain something than I do like a new model. I came to watch a pro. We're doing some layering, and we started out wet blending actually to get the transitions on the cloak here. And now I'm using layering, which is a dry or a wet over dry technique. So all this is already dry, and I'm layering up colors to kind of refine things, blend things in, punch my highlights up, stuff like that. I do this a lot. I'll start with wet blending, which is a wet onto wet, where you're using two colors wet and you're smooshing them together on the model to kind of set up your blends, your highlights, and your shadows. But then when it comes time to like get some precision, if you're going to do like higher highlights or textures or anything like that, layering is really your workhorse. Here I'm keeping my paint a little bit thicker so that I can get kind of a textured look for the cloth here, so I can make it look softer. Kind of, whenever you do a texture, you're going to get a bit of a softer focus, because as you introduce that texture, because usually you're working it in your highlights, because you're not doing small sharp highlights and you're not necessarily taking it up to near white, everything will look a little bit softer. It won't look shiny or slick. The surface won't. So I enjoy doing textures, so we actually did, not long ago, we did a very full of texture mini. We did our Knoll Pirate. And he has fur texture on his arm. He's got cloth texture on his belt. I guess it would be a cloth belt. He's got a lot of kind of rusted texture here with dings and dents on his sword. He's got leather texture on his belt. So the point of this model really was to show like what you could do with different textures. That Knoll is an excellent sculpt by our very own Julie Guthrie, who is in chat under the nomiker Green Users. Thanks, Agent Marvel S. It is really what I like to do. Like, I really do enjoy teaching and trying to give people a really kind of break it down for people. It's easy to just look at somebody doing magic like Wapple does and like kind of go, whoa, how did that even happen? I like to kind of break things down step by step. And if you ask questions in chat, I will answer them in detail. I check the chat pretty often. Dogfather, 26 months with the Prime sub. That's impressive. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. A sub for the show is a vote for the show. Every time you guys sub during my show, it's a vote to keep this thing going. And we've been going for a long time now, so that's pretty impressive. We've got to be getting close to that 500th episode. I'm just afraid we're all going to forget to check and like totally miss it. Are we getting close, Quindy? Have you counted lately? Because I know there was still some catching up on the YouTubes. So I'm going to get a little bit of light up here. Bring out the top of that fold. Never. Yeah, all of this stuff goes up on VOD, and then it also goes up on the Reaper Miniatures YouTube FS Studio. So I have an awful lot of models that I've painted over the course of this show. Everything from like that Knoll. We've done one of the other Julie models we've done. That's one of my favorites was the Sphinx. She's super cool, and we did her wings very pretty. Let's see, what are my other favorites? We do metallics on occasion. We did the bronze golem here. We did Tiefling with demonic skin tones. I've got a lot of models because I haven't delivered them to Ron. A lot of these models will go to Reaper to go into their gallery, and some stay with me. And every once in a while, I sell one on my Patreon. I don't know if I want to do freehand. I'm doing a lot of texture, Pendrake. I also remember Stumpy the Dragon. His parts should be coming to me in the mail, hopefully this week. So the minute we get those parts, I'm probably going to go over and start Stumpy. Stumpavrax. Whatever his real name is, or her real name. Don't know if it's a him or a her. So I'm not planning any too ambitious parts. I'm going to finish this guy if I can before Stumpy's parts hit us. But it means I probably won't do freehand just because we'll be doing a dragon. Or at least we'll be doing as much of a dragon as we can get done during the course of the rest of the Kickstarter. Because these models have already been painted by Rhonda, and they've been painted in detail. So I'm more, they asked me to paint Bone 6 models during the stream while the Bone 6 Kickstarter was going on. So this was the one that I liked the best, the ones I had, except for the dragon. So if we get the dragon parts, we're switching to dragon. Because I have a color scheme on the dragon that I really want to try. And I'm not sure how it'll work, or if it'll work, so I may do an about face on it. But it's actually like a blue-green fade I want to do on the dragon, so I want to do some interesting things. And tighten that up. Want a lot of highlight on the shoulder because the light is really falling there. So I'm going to bring up more of this Surf Aqua up there. come at it from both directions. Using a layering brush stroke so that the excess paint pools on the top of the shoulder where I want the highlight to be. You can see the wet there. I don't remember. We'll know once we get its stuff. Once we get the head, then we'll know which dragon it is. Right now it is only a body and a base. And wings. Somebody said they knew which one it was, but I don't remember. For right now, it is Stump-of-Rax, and it's going to stay Stump-of-Rax until I have parts. So typical. So I see bringing up the light on that shoulder. He said it was the one that looked more... I don't remember. Yeah, you guys know more than I do. I don't care, I just paint it. Once we get it, then you'll all say, is Karandar? Is that the name? Once we have the head, we can confirm identity. If we don't have the head, we need those dental records. So what happened, for those who are not in on the joke, is that Ron sent me a box of Bone 6 stuff, right? Including the adventuring party, of which this elf is one. And he sent me a dragon, except he didn't send me all the dragon. He only sent me the dragon body, wings, and base. So he doesn't even have little legs to stand on his base. So we've been giving Ron crap about this pretty much since he did it, because that's a time-honored Reaper tradition. Oh, has Michael been doing it? I'm totally not going to look. Okay, so I'm going to ask, did he do it in green? I'll ask. Is he painting it in green? Don't tell me anything else about it. I just need to know if he's been painting it in green. Oh, yeah, it was really nice to see you, Mr. FS. Thanks for the raid. Nice to meet you. I hope I'll see you again. Nope, he's not green. Okay, good. Mine is going to be green, but also blue. All right, so now I'm working in some of this spectral glow, which is much more of a greenish color, onto the shoulder. This is a nice big round area that's directly got a lot of light hitting it, so we can really, really punch it up, as you can see. That's his standard color combo. I don't even know what that is. Okay, gonna get the edge brought up there. Well, Michael, the difference here is probably that Michael is actually out to finish the dragon, whereas I specifically asked Ron if I had to finish it, and that would have been... Like, if he wanted it for a box art, I probably would have told him not to send the dragon. Because as we know from our past streams, when I paint a dragon, it takes a long time. And I don't like to bog down my stream with, like, that much. Like, staying on one model for that long. The bronze golem was bad enough, and I almost chucked that. Well, I think I'm going to do green with a blue fade and some funky highlights. That's kind of my thought. I want to experiment with a color scheme. I could have gone red, but I feel like I paint all dragons in red. Almost. Like I tend toward red, so I'm gonna not. There we go. We're coming up really nicely there. Let's get some nice highlights in there. We all have color ruts we fall into. I mean, all of us do. You won't think you do, but then you're going to find that suddenly that you're painting everything red or you're painting everything blue. Or like me, I always would go with purple and gold. We'll see how the dragon looks in person, because once I see the personality of the dragon, I might change my mind, but I'm kind of like, I'd really like to do kind of a green-blue thing. A little bit more highlight on that little bit of a fold. I'm using the spectral glow now to try to bring things up. Hello, Yuruko. Nice to meet you. Welcome to the stream. We do this every weekday morning here on Reaper Miniatures Twitch. Or at least for me, it's morning. For people on the East Coast, it's probably more midday. And for people in Europe, it's evening. And if you're in Asia, then wow, you stay up late. But yes, I'm here every weekday unless I've got something else going on. I'm traveling to a con or something. So welcome, and we hope you will return and hang out with us. We're almost to the end of the stream right now. I'll go another 15 minutes. So I've been doing some layering and putting some cloth texture on our cape here. It's really fine texture, so you can see a little bit of it. Hopefully there. Doing essentially a horizontal line just to catch a little bit of texture on it. And I've been building up my highlights here. Oh, yes. Okay, in Finland. Cool. But yeah, we do a variety. Right now I'm painting stuff that's from the Bones 6 Kickstarter. So our Reaper Bones Kickstarter, our latest one, is running right now. So they asked me to paint stuff from it. So Mr. Elf here is part of an adventuring party, a low-level adventuring party that Reaper put out. But I have parts of a dragon, and when the other parts of the dragon hit me, then I will be painting a dragon on stream for the rest of the Kickstarter. And the Kickstarter ends at the end of this month. And then we'll go back to our usual rotation. Usually what we do is we have a rotation of 6 different models that I kind of go through day by day, and then we loop around and go back to the front and do them until they are done, pretty much. And every stream I do on here goes up on our Reaper YouTube, so if you have one of the models that I've painted, if you want, you can even follow along. Although I do some pretty crazy freehand on occasion just because I feel like it. Doing a little bit of lightning there. Oh, good. Excellent. Yay. Yeah, for the stream, we're doing a bunch of different stuff right now. We have Bunny. She's almost done. I've been working on her. We're also working on a big centaur from the last Kickstarter. So I'm working on him. And then we just started Kitty Cat, one of the cat folk people that Julie Guthrie sculpted with the ball of yarn on the shield. It's so cute. So I'm looking forward to that one. And then probably the most different thing, because it's like really a one-time thing, is we put out a bust for ReaperCon last year. So I've been working on this pirate bust also. And we've just been working on her. And there's more. There's more too, but just to give you an idea. Yeah, it begs for freehand, but if there's a dragon, the dragon's going to interrupt the freehand. Like, I could start a little freehand design, and then I could make a big dragon head coming in and setting it on fire. I don't know. He's a level 1 adventurer. Does he really have the money for... I guess he's an elf. Maybe his parents had money, but maybe he's an elf from poor means, you know. Maybe he was like a wood elf, and they just didn't have a whole lot. That would be kind of cool to create a post-apocalyptic fantasy world where elves used to be like super like neato and all Tolkien-y, and then they like took a complete dive, and now they're like the wastrels of the fantasy universe. I like turning tropes on its head. Thank you, Yoruko. I need to like totally get your name down. This is the double O's and the U in the middle. Yoruko. I'll get it down. I only mess up names, for the first 17 times I say them. which I think is a time-honored Twitch tradition anyway, right? Is messing up names. So I'm just getting out some liner because I totally buried my lines here that set off that hem of the cloak. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of my Rogue Shadow brown liner kind of thing. And I'm going to put that line back in there because I totally ran over it. There we are. Got a little bit uneven there, but that's easy to go back and touch up, so. Oh, I bet. With the Wood Elves. Kinda. They kind of did. That's my army, Pendrake. So, I mean, Age of Sigmar is a post-apocalyptic fantasy world, period. But the Wood Elves weren't really... Like, yeah, they went wild. So I guess you could call it that. Yeah, I guess you could view it that way. It's more like they went back to, like, the primal versions of their gods, though. Which is a bit different. All right, so blending in again the bottom of that, losing a little bit of our big shadow, but let's back out a little bit and see how it's reading. Still reading pretty good. Bring up the highlights. We can definitely see all the details on the cloak now. Need to get this shoulder. So a little bit of light up on this shoulder as well. Although it's kind of behind this staff and the hood's there, so not as much light as over on this shoulder. All right, now I want to bring out these little folds up here for the last part. So let's grab our Surf Aqua. And I'm going to put a highlight right under my shadow stuff. So wherever I did those little shadow lines, I'm going to do a little highlight. There we are. Oh, we've got the first one. D. Clearman must be busy. All right, the first ever triple Subiversary song is sung to Kaz. So, triple Subiversary, triple Subiversary, triple Subiversary, happy triple Subiversary. Everybody clap, round of applause for Kaz. 3 years of watching my silly self paint. I don't know if that's congrats or condolences. Yeah. All the hype, all the love. Thanks, everybody. Yes. Pour it onto the Kaz. All the support. Indeed. Yeah, that's insane. The triple subversary. Hello, Astra TTV. Thank you for the raid. We're just, unfortunately, we are right at the end of our show. Oh, and if you're wondering why chat is blowing up, it's because we just had somebody with a triple subversary. So they've actually subbed to this stream for 36 months. So I had to sing. But you missed it, don't worry. And so what I'm otherwise doing is I'm working on the cloth today on this cape. So I did a wet blend. I set it up. I did some layering to blend things in and to bring in a little bit of cloth texture on the cape and the highlights. And now I am bringing in highlights on these little areas around the neck. Yes, but other people may not like it when I sing. Oh, it's cool. I mean, that happens all the time, right? Whenever I try to raid somebody, it seems like they're like, we only have 10 minutes left. I'm like, dough. It's a thing. It's a Twitch thing. Everybody knows it happens. Just going to get this little highlight in here. Tiny little highlights to pick out those little folds. Tiny fold highlights. And there's a little one down here as well. Bring that out. I'm going to actually go up to our spectral glow on that too. Bring out those little folds a little bit more. A small Scottish cat loved the singing, huh? I had a friend whose cat did not like me because I was way too loud for him because they were quiet people. So your cat is like the opposite, Kerniko. Your cat likes it when I get loud and boisterous. There we go. So just bring in a little bit more to suggest that these parts are coming out. So I still want some shadows in here, but I want to bring those folds in so you can really see, really see those. A little bit harder here on the other side because everything is kind of buried behind the staff, but there we go. Pretty 3D. I need to bring up this edge a little lighter. But it's not though, because there's holidays in there and there's times I've been on vacation. It hasn't really added up quite that much over the 3 years. He loves boisterous. It's a funny cat. I don't remember. I started streaming this show. No, I haven't done 3 years. Although I have done 3 years actually. Okay, so Pendrake, the beginning of it would have been the old the old Reaper toolbox when I was doing Dance of Death, remember? That was for like a whole year. And then I started doing in April, like I started when I moved, we skipped several weeks, but I've only been doing 5 days a week since the pandemic started. Like I think that was when we swapped, because that was when I was like not at Reaper anymore and I could. So I think, so it's only been 2 years of 5 days a week, and there has been time off, right, for moving, for having, cons and things. Like for ReaperCon, I skip, I probably am out 6 days, and for Adepticon, I was out a lot. So only we were doing it only Wednesdays for the old Reaper toolbox, and then when we went to Pro Tips, that was the every weekday show, and that was a little more than 2 years ago, I think. Maybe not. But yeah, but still quite a bit of time off here and there. Especially when I moved from Texas to California, I was off for quite a while. So I have streamed for 3 years, but for the first year there was like just once a week while I was at Reaper. Because I still had to do my regular job when I was still working at Reaper. But when we all went remote, when the Kickstarter when COVID closed stuff down, I was doing the every day. And that's why we are close to 500 episodes, but not 750. Yeah, late May, early June. I think you're right, Turgeon. I keep forgetting to check in and see. I just want to make sure we've got lots of online gift codes lined up to give away when we have the 500th one. Because I want to make a big to-do. A big to-do about it. Because 500 episodes! I should think there's not very many Twitch shows that hit like 500. Alrighty, and we are at... Okay, good. Today makes 471. Good deal. All right. So we'll be at 475 by the end of this week, guys. 475 on Friday. Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully, Stumpy the Dragon's head and limbs will get to me sometime this week. Maybe even today. And once we get a Stumpy, we will move to Draconic Goodness. But for now, we are really making progress on our elf. We did, the blue's looking nice. So I'm very happy with it. If we go a while and Stump of Rex doesn't arrive, then I may consider putting freehand on it. Even though he's a first level character, or at most second level, we put something simple back there. Stuff like that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Welcome to the people who found us through the Kickstarter. We do this every weekday from, I have to think, 11:30 a.m. Central USA time to 1 p.m. Central USA. And yeah. Yeah, it looks nice and drapey, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm very happy with it. Yes, and then Rhonda. Rhonda's going to be on at 2 p.m. Central Time with Beyond the Kit. So do give Rhonda some love. She's also excellent. She also explains things really, really well. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you again tomorrow morning. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.